Hello, my name is Joe Kramer. I'm a physics teacher and a writer on OpenSciEd P3. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Lesson 2. This is where we start to build the foundations of the mathematical modeling that will be very central to the physics that we do throughout the entire unit. So we build the idea of a reference frame and scaling with units and things like this. It's a very physicsy lesson, so let's see how it all fits together. First, some details about how we got here. During lesson 1, we figured out that we have lots of questions about what can make driving more safe or less safe. We analyzed graphs, and some of the patterns in those graphs seemed puzzling. For example, the percent of crashes with fatalities or injuries goes down steadily until 2010, and then it starts climbing. This particular pattern points straight to phones and distractions as a primary driver of accidents and pedestrian fatalities. So we're wondering, how might distractions like phones affect driving safety? This is an investigation lesson. It should take about 2 days and requires 45 minutes or so of materials prep. It is not a hands-on investigation and does not require devices unless you choose to do the lesson that way. I'll tell you more about that in, in a moment. So there are 3 big sections in this lesson. Let's see what's happening in each one. In this first section, we're focused on analyzing video data of distracted and undistracted drivers, or one driver in particular. So we track position and distance, but then we figure out that it is possible to collect more precise data for the 2 driving examples we just saw if we're focused on time as well. So in the second section, we start to track that time data for those same 2 videos, and we ultimately make a position time graph for the undistracted driver as a class. And we figure out that patterns in position versus time graphs like this can tell us details about how an object moves, such as the slope of the graph tells us the speed of the car. In this third section, we track this time data for the distracted driver, and we make a position time graph with a partner or individually for that distracted driver. So we figure out that the distracted driver moves at their initial speed for longer. We define this idea of reaction time, and therefore they have traveled a farther reaction distance before they begin to slow down. We see those in the graph. So in summary, we can analyze distance and time data for a moving car. A position time graph clearly shows patterns related to how this car moves, and the slope of the graph tells us the speed of the car. Reaction time and reaction distance can both be useful quantities when analyzing how people stop when they see an obstacle. Some key moments from these 3 parts. When we first make the position time graph, or collect the data that will ultimately become our position time graph, we're going to attach receipt paper to the place where your projector displays. So you get a long strip of paper, you tape it to the screen, and you mark the car at key moments: when the obstacle appears, when the brake lights turn on, and when the car reaches a full stop. So we keep a record of this data on a poster and on the student handout that you see here. Students can also tape paper to their laptop screens and do this individually, or analyze the video in pairs. This is what would make it a hands-on investigation that requires students' devices. Notice we are measuring distances, not position. Position meaning like in reference to a constant origin point, like a constant 0 point. This concept, while pretty simple, is a very teachery way to approach the problem. So I would discourage you from actually trying to make students do it this way, instead of just measuring how far the car has gone, which is a quantity called distance or even displacement. Part 4 then repeats this process for the second video, but the idea is the same. We end up with both of these pieces of receipt paper for the 2 videos. Now, part 7 and 8 are about building this position time graph. I apologize because I wrote it, but the guidance for this as written is incredibly long and detailed. Um, the reason for that is the sequence is important for helping students piece together what these graphs mean and how we can make them from the data that we collected. So we start by measuring time data on a timeline with this evenly spaced scale. Then we take the position data that we collected earlier and we reorient it vertically. You like actually physically show students the process of like turning it sideways to remind students of where those numbers came from. And then we calculate and make sense of the slope as a speed, either constant speed for constant slope, or if we see a curved line, a changing speed. When you give students the opportunity to make their own graph of the distracted driving scenario, there are two approaches to making this graph. And what you're seeing here is a resource that I made to scaffold two approaches. Um, you can let students do it how they want to do it, but they might feel confused. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So one approach is giving students the chance to just use the distance values that we collected, but making sense of how to use those. The other builds this idea of position with a constant reference point as something that could be useful when making graphs like this. So rather than making this decision for students, I would encourage you to let them wrestle with it themselves. Students who aren't thinking about it will likely just graph the distance the car went and the time intervals, just like put numbers down on the graph. They will get a graph that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'd argue that's a great opportunity to help them really understand reference frames in our work with motion longer term. Um, where do we go from here? We figure out that increased reaction time can increase reaction distance. So we turn our attention to other factors that can increase reaction distance, such as speed. We look closer at technologies that can mitigate the influence of reaction distance, like automatic stopping technology, that type of thing. Some tips and tricks for managing materials throughout this lesson. The gray quantities that you see here are measured values, and these will change based on your projector size. If students measure these on their screen, we'd expect to see values like below 10 or 20 centimeters, but the scaled values, the values you see in black, should end up being the same because that's the idea of scaling. The red line that we see on the graph follows from this idea of slope on a position time graph as speed. So we're looking for this idea that a curved line can show slope or speed approaching zero while the car slows down. So we're looking for this top red line rather than the bottom red line. Both show a curve, but one of them has a curve that makes more sense than the other with this idea of slope as speed. The difference between position and displacement is an important one. You're seeing the apple is at a position of 3 meters, but this apple was moved a displacement of 3 meters. Those are both useful quantities for us, but students need to have time, like mental space, to wrestle with what makes those quantities different. Distance or displacement tends to be more intuitive to students, but it requires some real sense making when they're asked to use those values to make a graph. Words that we co-construct, reaction time and reaction distance, those end up being important for our unit as we go. Words we encounter, distance, time interval, or position interval, and the idea that we can be distracted. A little spicy hot take from me, like this consensus model that we make in lesson one, like I haven't found it to be that useful. I've skipped this consensus model in lesson one and I haven't missed it actually. So we'll be making so many chart paper resources in this unit. This one from lesson one is one that I'm okay letting go. This record of numbers from the video, we use it and then we let it go, so you could actually not refer back to this in the future. This graph, however, we definitely want to keep on the wall as an example of position time graphs as we go forward looking at other graphs. This next video is going to be about how speed affects whether you actually hit something, whether you can slow down in time. So we'll see you for the next video as well.